So good morning and welcome to our Family Caregiver webinar. This morning, my name is Carrie McClellan. I'm the Outreach Manager for ElderHelp, and I will introduce our speaker in just a moment, Jean Alton with Alzheimer's San Diego. So before we get into today's important topic of communication skills, I'm just going to share a little bit about ElderHelp and why we host these webinars and offer educational opportunities and information for family caregivers. So we are celebrating our 50th anniversary, which is really exciting for us here at ElderHelp. And what our mission is, we provide services and information to help seniors remain independent and live with dignity in their own homes. And in those past 50 years, we have supported over 260,000 seniors and their families. And the family part is important because we know that while a lot of people might live on their own and not be connected with others, we have quite a few families who reach out to us to learn about resources and find support so that they can put together a good plan for their loved one to age in place. So it definitely takes a lot of us and a village, if you will, to make that happen. So at ElderHelp, we have a set of core services that we offer, and I won't go through these in detail, but just to be familiar that we do offer information and referral services. We offer an Are You OK check-in call program. We offer nutrition services through grocery shopping assistance as well as through a food pantry. We have a transportation program that's called Seniors A Go-Go, where volunteers can help with providing rides. We offer care coordination services and volunteer assistance with friendly visits and minor home repairs and home office help. And then we offer a roommate matching program called Home Share, in addition to other housing supportive services. And today's webinar is through our Family Caregiver Support Program, where we've recognized that nearly 50% of our calls do come from family caregivers. So while we provide direct services to older adults, families are a really big part of what we do. So we offer our information and referral service to anybody who might be looking for those resources. We can help with navigating the different options. We host webinars like this, and we also have created online courses to help you figure out what it means to be a family caregiver and what that journey might entail and how to plan ahead. So we are incredibly grateful for our partnership with Alzheimer's San Diego, and we partner in a couple of different ways with this incredible organization. But I have the honor of introducing our speaker, Jean Alton, today for our topic. And I think that before I introduce her, whenever I'm in communication with family members who are caring for aging loved ones, and especially if they are living with dementia, a lot that comes out of those conversations is about communication. And it's really important to be able to communicate with loved ones when you are caring for them. And so I think today's topic is really helpful for a lot of people who might be navigating that process, because it can be difficult at times. So I look forward to sharing that expertise with all of you. So let me introduce Jean Alton. She has worked in the field of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias for over 30 years. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and in recreation therapy, and is a certified positive approach to care dementia trainer. Jean's expertise is built upon her many years of experience working in a variety of settings, including memory care in facilities, adult social day programs, early memory loss programs, and care management. Jean is a senior dementia educator with Alzheimer's San Diego, where she provides community education and coordinates programs for people with early stage dementia. So Jean, welcome, and we're happy to have you here. And I will turn my camera off, but I will advance the slides as you ask me to.
Great. Thank you, Carrie, and thank you for the kind introduction. And we too at Alzheimer's San Diego are just very pleased with our partnership with ElderHelp. And, you know, between our organization and ElderHelp, I just hope all of you folks are using at least some, if not more than some, of the services each of our organizations offers. So we're here today to talk about communication skills. So let's go to the first slide, please, Carrie. So our agenda for today is what we're going to start with is talking about dementia symptoms and how they are changing communication and behavior. So next. So just to ensure that we all kind of have the basic understanding of dementia, our definition of dementia is that it's describing a syndrome, a group of symptoms that is caused by something that's going on medically in a person. And this group of symptoms is impairing more than one cognitive domain, and it's interfering with normal function, with normal daily function. And so we often see that memory is affected, and then one of these other domains, and sometimes more than one of them. Sometimes it's another 2 or 3 of the domains that are affected, and that includes language, attention, problem solving, behavior, and visual spatial abilities. Now, I like this graphic on the slide because I think it's a good visual reminder for us as family members and care partners that, you know, the person with dementia has this actual damage going on in the brain, and it is affecting their ability to communicate, both to receive communication and to give and put forward and put out communication. And it's easy for us as care partners to forget about that because we look at them and physically, at least in the early and towards the more moderate stages, we don't necessarily see physical changes in the person. So it's easy for our default setting as we're struggling with communication to kind of go to that place where we get frustrated, upset, and angry because communication isn't working. So I think a graphic like this is helpful and good in the sense that it reminds us that there is some physical things going on, changes and damage in the brain that is causing communication processing to be interrupted and affected. Okay, next slide. So specifically in parts of the brain, just for everyone to have an idea, and again, to kind of translate these ideas into how it's affecting communication. In the temporal lobe, which is kind of in the middle of the brain, this is often where the damage from dementia is first starting. And in the temporal lobe is where we begin to process memory. So this is why we often see memory being affected, okay? Language is also being partially governed here in the temporal lobe. So we're starting to see some language difficulties as well too when there's damage in that area. In the frontal lobe here, kind of behind our forehead, this is where we have executive function. This is kind of the CEO, the boardroom if that's the description of the brain. This is where we do problem solving, decision making. This is where we process behavior, and it's also the seat of empathy for others, to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of others, in the situation of others, and be able to empathize and use that empathy as a part of our decision making. So it's really executive function. The parietal lobe, kind of up here at the top of the brain and a little bit towards the back. This is where we have perception, word, and thought formation. So when that's being affected by a dementia diagnosis, there's a lot of information that's getting scrambled up with regards to perception, what we're seeing and hearing and taking in, and with regards to word and thought formation. The occipital lobe, kind of at the back of the brain here, this is where visual information is processed. And so when that's being affected, what we are seeing visually is getting scrambled up. So that can cause a real disconnect between what is being visually seen and what is being heard. And this can impact communication. And then the cerebellum at the back, leading down and into the spinal column. This is where we have fine motor skill, balance, and coordination. So these are all the areas of the brain that are being impacted by the dementia diagnosis. And we want to think about that in terms of the functioning that those areas of the brain govern and how that is affecting communication. All right, next slide. So, communication changes within the area of dementia for a person with a diagnosis of some type of dementia. Communication changes are symptoms of this progressive disease, whatever it might be, Alzheimer's disease or some other type of dementia. So it's important, again, for us as care partners and family members to consistently remind ourselves of that these changes are the symptoms of the disease progression, not born out of a desire to cause problems for us or to be contrary or argumentative or to challenge us in different ways. So they're actual symptoms of the progression of the disease. So what does that look like? Difficulty finding or understanding words. And so we may see people whose language is starting to have gaps, with the words, not being able to find the right ones, but it's also trouble processing the information that's coming in. Again, challenge is connecting what is seen with what is heard. Now, how would this be a communication issue? Well, think about how often we use nonverbals to give us information, and that can be everything from an expression on a face, a smile or a frown, can be body language, it can be all sorts of other things. And I'm just thinking, even, if we hear a siren that seems to be from behind us and we're driving, then for a person without dementia, we're saying, oh gosh, is it an ambulance or a fire truck? Do I need to pull over to the side of the road to let this siren come through? And so we are making that connection between what we hear and now what we're looking for. These are the kind of problems that people with dementia are often not able to solve, to kind of complete that process. So the connection between what is seen and what is heard is again something that is scrambled. Difficulty filtering out background noise. And think about all this in terms of maybe what you've experienced. Now, what I can tell you for myself is if I am in a restaurant that's a very busy restaurant and quite open, and so you hear the noise of all the people in there, it makes it really hard for me to track the conversation that the people I'm with are having, because I'm having problems filtering out that background noise. And so that can be it can be even in your own home, not just in public places. Think about if the TV is always on in the home. That can be something that can contribute to the background noise and cause confusion. There can be primary and secondary language confusion, and it's not uncommon for people who are bilingual or speak more than 2 languages to revert back to their first learned language, to begin communicating only in that language, and they may start to have difficulty understanding and or communicating in the secondary or other languages that they have learned. There may be repetition of statements or questions, and this is related to the memory loss in that temporal lobe, that they are not able to capture that information, and so are asking repeatedly the same questions. Where are we going? What's happening? Are we going out this morning? And this is where, as care partners, we, have to, as a part of acquiring new communication skills, we need to acquire lots and lots of patience. to be able to repeat the answers as often as is needed. And of course, frustration when communication isn't working. It's frustrating for all of us, but I think, this is where we need to use our empathy and try to put yourself in the shoes of the person with the dementia diagnosis. When all this information is coming in from various sources, visually, through hearing, through perception, people are talking, we're looking outside and, saying it's sunlight, so it's daytime. We're listening to our bodies. My stomach is rumbling, so does that mean it's mealtime? There's a lot of information that is coming in on a regular basis that for those of us without a dementia diagnosis is just part of normal daily life that we manage. You think if you have a dementia diagnosis and some of this information is starting to get scrambled up so you don't really understand or know what's going on, it's got to be a pretty frustrating and sometimes fearful place. So let's go to the next. So with regards to changing relationships, because they are changing, you've maybe been for years, let's say, for example, you've been spouses and you're still spouses, but now you're also a care partner or a caregiver to your spouse. So that's changing the spousal relationship, and this is this new relationship of caregiver to the person with dementia. As these relationships change, again, it's important for all of us to remind ourselves that the person with the dementia diagnosis cannot change what is happening in their brain. That is a physical change taking place with the damage of the plaques and the tangles, and or with other types of dementia. There's other pathology going on. And therefore, it falls on us. It is our responsibility to adapt and change our responses and the way we communicate. So both are changing. They are changing because of the disease, and we are changing and adapting because of the disease. And so this is affecting relationships. I just want to acknowledge that care partners just get so much put on their plates, caregivers and care partners, to manage the dementia diagnosis, to assist and support the person with the diagnosis, to do everything from all the appointments and slowly taking on more roles and responsibilities in the home. And here I am with Alzheimer's San Diego, adding yet another thing to the plate, saying, we are the ones, you are the ones who must adapt and change. And I want to acknowledge that there must be times where it just feels overwhelming, and to think that there's yet one more thing that you have to take on as a role and responsibility can be very difficult. And this is when it is important for all of you folks to remember that Alzheimer's San Diego is here for you, as is ElderHelp. And these are the kind of things that we can help and support you with in acquiring and changing those ways of communicating, acquiring the skills to do so. And perhaps in other areas of your life too, with some respite, with support groups, with further education, with, volunteer visitors, whatever it may be. So lean on us when you're feeling that sense of overwhelm. And even before then, please lean on us as organizations. That's what we're here for. Next slide, please, Carrie. So we talk about a lot that has changed. And the next slide says what hasn't changed. And so the next slide, what we want you to go into as we talk about strategies for effective conversations, connection, and communication is think about what remains in the person you're caring for, the person with the dementia diagnosis. what are the positives and the good things that remain, that are points for connection and communication and positive interactions. So let's talk a little bit further about that. So next. Okay, so I think you all know, we all know, that communication is more than just language. And it is everything from the tone of our voice to the facial expressions we give, our posture, body language and movement, physical interactions and behavior. There's a whole lot of stuff that we take in as communication that's between the lines, right? It's not about the verbal, it's about what we're hearing and seeing. So when, my friend is telling me everything is fine, but she's using this tone of voice. Yes, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And she's giving me the frown, and she's not looking at me in the eye, and she's stiff in her body posture. What is that telling me? Everything is not fine. There's something going on. What is it? And so we take in all of that information without a lot of deep thought into it. It's just kind of instinctive in a way that we just take that in, and we know, when the information we're hearing is not connecting with what we're seeing. So, and this actually, I think, is something that can be a strength for many people with dementia, in the sense that what they see visually sticks with them more than what they hear you saying, okay? Has been my experience over the years. So, but understand what we talked about earlier is that some of the connection between what is being said and what is being seen visually can get scrambled. So it's really important for us to think about those two things and match them to the best of our abilities, okay? So if we are trying to demonstrate positive mood and outlook, let's say, for example, about a upcoming doctor's visit, and we have a sense as a care partner or caregiver that we may get some resistance from the person with dementia about the doctor's appointment. So what I need to do to match what I say with how I look, all these nonverbal types of things, is think about how I present all of that. So that means I'd better not go in a rush saying, come on, Mom, hurry up. We've got to get going. We're late for the doctor's appointment. And then getting more irritated with Mom when Mom's not getting ready, chop, chop, chop. So giving it, obviously, some of the obvious things like extra time, but then going in a slower way with an easy tone of voice, more positive, not hurried and rushed, using positive facial expressions, looking people in the eye, positive body language and movement, and then thinking about those physical interactions as well too. Let me help you. We're going to get ready to go to that doctor's appointment now, Mom. Would you like to wear a sweater? Maybe the blue one or the red one? So kind of thinking about how we are presenting information and communicating information to these folks, non-verbally as well as verbally. So next slide, please, Carrie. So, and connecting is an important piece of this, and it's the first step. So we need to, in order to connect with people, and this is really, I think, mostly intuitive stuff, is we need to maintain good eye contact and physical position. And so again, rushing into a room and being in a rush and talking to people while we're doing other things is not a great start to it, and especially for a person with a diagnosis of dementia. So we need to stop trying to do other things think about how we're positioning ourselves, kind of get in front of people and get that eye contact going. And what can sometimes help is to make an introduction. And this might be more for people who are perhaps more in the moderate or later stages of a disease progression, but it can happen earlier too. And so an example where you can make an introduction without it feeling too weird, maybe, is for me, I come into mom's room, maybe I just knock, the door's open, but I knock on the door jamb and I say, "Hi, Mom, it's me, it's Jean, your favorite daughter." And then I come in and let her see me and I make eye contact. And I'm paying attention to my tone of voice and my volume, allowing her time to process that I've entered the room and that I'm giving her information saying, "You need to get ready to go to your doctor's appointment." And then considering ways to communicate with the other senses as well too. So it's a little bit chilly this morning. Would you like to wear the red sweater or your blue sweater? Holding them up. So it's just a much more positive approach and positive interaction. The intent is to pave the way for a positive interaction through some changes in communication styles and through the approaches. All right, let's see what the next one says, Carrie. So here's some other general techniques that are quite good, really effective. Use short, clear sentences and simplify the instructions and limit the choices. Our default position for most of us as human beings, when we think somebody doesn't quite understand what we've just said to them, or they need further explanation or more detail, is that we over-explain and we do give them more detail. For people with dementia, this is not helpful. All we're doing is piling on the information that they need to sort through and try and figure out. So use short, clear sentences, simplify the instructions, limit choices. We're going to the doctor's today. It's chilly out. Would you like to wear your red sweater or your blue sweater? Repeat those statements and questions when it is needed, and do your best to try and repeat those statements in the same way that you did the first time around. So if we change up the wording, it's the same answer ultimately, but we've changed up the wording. Yeah, no, the temperature is 61 degrees this morning here in San Diego, and of course that's kind of chilly for us San Diegans. So, you probably want to wear a sweater this morning, Mom. Again, too much information, too much unnecessary information. So just try to repeat it the same way you did the first time around so that they can process that. Address the person directly, and I don't think it needs to be said, but we will say it. Avoid baby talk or elder speak. I don't think that's so much of a thing anymore, but I think there's been times in the past where it has been, perhaps more so with people who have been involved in the care of the person with dementia, where they're calling them sweetie or honey or things like that. And, if that's a normal type of communication between you and the person with dementia, fine. If it's not, don't assume that it's okay to use those terms of endearment that maybe you haven't earned as a person caring for the diagnosed individual. Next slide, please, Carrie. So these are things we want to try not to do, and it's hard. I, again, just want to acknowledge that. So, deep breath. To the best of our abilities, we want to try not to argue or to correct them. Why? Because not very often are you going to win in any of those situations. And really, in the end, there's probably no winners to it. So if mom says, I don't have a doctor's appointment, then, maybe the default is we want to say, yes, you do. This is Dr. Jones. You've been seeing Dr. Jones for years. The appointment's been on your calendar since the last time we saw Dr. Jones. That was 6 months ago. I told you about it yesterday. So I'm giving all this information and reasoning why we do have an appointment with Dr. Jones. And mom is saying, no, I don't have an appointment with Dr. Jones. You never told me anything about this. So who's going to win in this argument? Pretty much, it's pretty certain nobody's going to win. So try not to argue. Try not to correct, as in, you're wrong, Mom. Just look at the calendar. These are all the reasons why you're wrong. There's no need to remind the person that they forgot. That is something that we, I think, have kind of as a default setting also. I think about how often in my life, in my home life, in my family life, we all forget different things, and how often each of us says, don't you remember? I told you about such and such. And we actually say that a fair amount of the time, don't you remember? And it might even be just as we're reminiscing, doing some storytelling about something that happened a couple of weeks ago on a trip. Is no, that's not, don't you remember we were here doing this? And, you get into this back and forth about who's got the correct memory. So it's just not helpful for people with dementia to remind them that they forgot, and or to question or quiz their recent memory. All we're really doing is kind of calling attention to the memory loss, and that can be not only hurtful and demoralizing, but it can be something that just will shut down communication, because kind of the lesson behind it is, well, I just won't say anything. If everything I say is going to be corrected or questioned, then I won't say anything. And we don't want our people living with a diagnosis of dementia to shut down. We want to keep communicating and connecting. And lastly, don't take it personally. And this is an interesting one, and also can be very difficult depending on the situation. And it could be everything from reminding yourself that the empathy, kind of the center of empathy is in the frontal lobe. And so if we have a person who's not showing any empathy for us, that we have pain, that we're sick, that we're very tired, they may have blunt remarks about that. They may say things that feel hurtful to us. You look terrible today. You should do something about your hair, or you've gained a lot of weight. You're getting kind of fat. People with dementia sometimes say things like that. And it can be kind of sometimes shocking and sometimes really upsetting. I hate you. I never, ever should have married you. Remember, there's a disease process, pathology going on in the brain. It's affecting areas of the brain. It's affecting empathy. It's affecting judgment, problem solving, memory, all of those things. So sometimes we're hearing things that are hurtful. And we have to work hard to try not to take it personally. All right, let's try the next slide, Carrie. So what we try to do, and encourage all of you to try to do, is to try and frame your statements and requests positively. And let me just add politely. Please do this versus don't do that. And I think, being polite and positive can actually gain you a lot of ground in your communications. And that also means looking at, again, making that connection between what your body language is saying in addition to what your words are. And so you might need to step away for 10 minutes, go in the bathroom and lock the door, take a few deep breaths so you can get yourself kind of, I was getting really angry and frustrated with Mom, and I needed to just take a few moments and get myself back to a better place so I can go out and start over, start again. Mom, we have this doctor's appointment this morning. Will you please put your sweater on and we'll get going. Try to maintain a spirit of generosity and forgiveness. And the forgiveness part of things sometimes means being willing to accept blame for things that are not caused by us or that we didn't, initiate or don't have responsibility for. I'm so sorry, Mom. I realize now I forgot to tell you about the appointment with Dr. Jones. That's my fault. I'm really sorry about that. Let's go anyways, because it's scheduled. I won't do this again, Mom. And remember that kindness may be more important than honesty. And so look through kind of that visual screen of kindness versus honesty for a moment. And think about things where, for example, a spouse asking for a husband or a wife who died a long time ago. And are you going to keep telling them every day, maybe several times a day, that Dad died 20 years ago? Or are you going to start saying things like, when Mom says, well, where is he? Where's Dad? Are we going to say things like, I think he's at work still. He'll be home later. Are you comfortable doing that? Think about it very carefully, that kindness may be more important than honesty in some situations. And that we do call it all sorts of different things, including therapeutic fibbing. And I definitely think that there's times and places where therapeutic fibbing is appropriate. So it's something that takes time and practice to get kind of more comfortable with and get over kind of the weirdness of the idea that, well, I'm straight out lying to my mom and that feels weird, or I'm lying to my spouse and I don't like that. And I certainly get those uncomfortable feelings. And I can tell you from personal experience that it gets a little easier with time. So time and practice. So let's see the next slide. So what we say is focus on the feelings, not the facts, okay? So have that phrase kind of in your head in the situations that you go into with the person with the diagnosis. Next. So by focusing on the feelings, another important part of this is that we want to validate those feelings. So what is validation? It's where we're giving people recognition or affirmation that they and what they are feeling are worthwhile. Feelings are feelings. They're kind of neither right nor wrong. It's what you own yourself. If you're feeling sad or lonely or frustrated, whatever it is, it's not a situation where we can go in and say, although sometimes we do, well, you shouldn't feel sad. Well, that maybe I shouldn't, but that's what I'm feeling. So What we want to be giving people is agreement, reassurance, understanding, and empathy. Okay, so next. So here we go. This is the doctor's appointment one. You didn't tell me about a doctor's appointment. I'm not going. And then click the slide. You've been seeing this doctor every 3 months for years, Mom. It's right here on your calendar. It's Dr. Jones. And the next click. Versus, oh, Mom, I am so sorry. Did I forget to tell you about this appointment? I am so sorry about that. I will make sure I don't do that again. Let's go. Catch your sweater. So some different ways of approaching this. So rather than arguing with Mom or trying to correct her about her perception that I hadn't told her about this doctor's appointment, I'm responding to her feelings. She's frustrated with me. She might be angry with me. She's taken by surprise. Now she maybe feels a little, oh, my morning's been all messed up. And so I'm responding to those feelings that she's expressing through her statement to me. And I'm accepting responsibility for being the cause of those feelings and that frustration, even though I did tell her about the appointment multiple times. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you folks. All right, let's see the next one. So responding to behavioral expression. This is another area where we're focusing on what it is we're seeing and experiencing with our person we're caring for with a diagnosis of dementia. All right, next. So we call a behavioral expression something that is an out of character response. It is a symptom of the disease process. It is a form of communication, and it is an expression of need. So what are some examples of behavioral expressions? Next slide. Could be any one of these things or more. And restlessness, anxiety or agitation, repetition. Shadowing. By shadowing, we mean sticking as close to you as possible all the time. Like, this is where we talk about the person with the dementia is attached at the hip to the care partner, where you can't hardly even get into the bathroom alone without them knocking on the door and saying, what are you doing? Where are you? They're just close to you all the time. The reason they're close to you all the time, they have determined that being close to you is the safe zone. So they're not going to stray far from the safe zone. We can see depression or sadness and social withdrawal. Very common in people with dementia, both of those things. Sometimes we can see aggression. Might be verbal aggression, and it might be physical in the sense of becoming more like showing physical combativeness or pushing or hitting out, that kind of thing. We may see paranoia. Somebody's stealing from me, or you're having an affair with somebody, or there's people who are trying to get in the house. It could be a bunch of different scenarios with paranoia. It can be wandering behavior, not uncommon, happens in most people with dementia, wandering and becoming lost. It could be disinhibition, and that could be everything from taking clothes off in, inappropriate places in public. It could be eating without stopping. One cookie after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, with no stop. It could be sexual activity, disinhibition of sexual activity or desire for sexual activity. It could be refusing assistance. Might be sleep disturbance, very common, getting night and day all kind of mixed up. And then what we have last on the list is sundowning, which is a particular type of behavior that we do see in some people with dementia, where they become more restless and more agitated and seemingly more anxious, kind of at the end of the day, when day is transitioning into evening and into night. And it's kind of the circadian rhythms of the day where, either you might be coming home from work or coming home from school or expecting the kids home from school or, the family coming together for supper or for dinner. And then kind of just making that transition into the evening hours and the nighttime hours leading up to sleep. So it's that transition time of day where people with dementia often can get what we call sundowning, which is restlessness and anxiety and agitation. Might see wandering behavior then, just more easily upset, just kind of this heightened sensitivity to all sorts of different things. And there are some specific techniques that we have for hopefully what is better management of the sundowning behavior that we can see that can assist with some of that. So next slide, please. So what we're needing to do when we're seeing these things, these behaviors, is to start by assessing, do they have some physical or medical needs going on? So, or is it environmental or emotional needs? So, and then validate that. So next slide. So the triggers might be, these are the things we need to kind of think about as we put on our, as I say, our detective caps and try to figure out what's happening here. Do they have some kind of pain or discomfort, hunger or thirst? They may not be able to communicate that I'm thirsty, that my mouth is super dry. So, but I'm starting to get, it's bothering me and my body needs hydration. So it might be a need to eliminate, to, go to the bathroom, to, urinate or to have a bowel movement. And again, maybe I can't find, as a person with dementia, I don't remember where the bathroom is. I can't find it, or I'm not recognizing those body signals that I'm getting that says my bladder is full. It might be inadequate activity. People with dementia get restless and bored just like the rest of us do. So what do? Then we, in those cases, we offer something to drink. We offer a snack. We say, it's time, let's go to the bathroom. And we attempt to see if meeting those needs will help to tone down the behavior. It might be an emotional trigger, fear, frustration, social isolation, or boredom. And so we do our best to try and figure out those things as well too. If mom is getting really upset and antsy with me because I'm trying to rush her off to this doctor's appointment, then it might be out of frustration that I'm getting these behaviors from her. And so maybe I need to actually just cancel the doctor's appointment and have a redo of that another day. So we need to kind of, again, put the detective cap on and try to really kind of analyze what's going on. It could be something medical going on, an infection or an illness. Could be a stroke or something going on cardiovascular wise, and it could be depression or anxiety. And one of the things you've maybe heard about and maybe have had experience with in the past is sometimes people with dementia, as well as people with other diagnoses, will get a urinary tract infection that is kind of goes under the radar. In other words, maybe there's not a lot of pain. We don't hear them expressing that there's pain, but in fact, there's a urinary tract infection going on. And as the infection proceeds, things are getting worse, and we can start to see some sudden changes in behavior. And then come to find out it is one of these UTIs, and getting people on the appropriate antibiotics just kind of helps get rid of that infection, and those behaviors go away. So we have to think that it could be something medical going on. And of course, it could be environmental. It could be being in unfamiliar surroundings, sensory overload, caregiver stress. And I think, especially as it's this time of year, as we're approaching November already, and then December holidays, holidays can be fun, but it can be a lot of all these things: unfamiliar surroundings, sensory overload, and caregiver stress. And the same is true for people with dementia. Might be family gatherings where there's a lot of people, a lot of action, music, lots of food. Might be in unfamiliar areas with, neighbors, fellow church members, people that are less, the person with the diagnosis is less familiar with. So these are things that can also trigger, a behavioral expression that might be somebody just saying, enough, I need to get home and get to like a quiet place and a quiet space. All right, next, Carrie. So we put on our detective caps. We have attempted to figure out what's going on. We have responded with calm and reassurance and communicating, understanding, and empathy. I know you're not feeling good. And there's a lot of things going on here. Maybe it's time for us to go home. We'll leave the party now and go home. Or, if they have something physical going on, it seems like it's a bladder infection. I know that you haven't been feeling well. That's why we went to see the doctor. These antibiotics are going to help you feel better. So, whatever the situation may be. So I know it's awful when you feel you've really got to go to the bathroom and there's no bathroom close by. I would feel awful then too. So I'm glad we found the bathroom. So all of these things, responding with calm, with reassurance, understanding, and responding to the feelings the person has been experiencing. So next slide. So a good example of validating and then ultimately redirecting, and actually, let me just say, of the whole process: assessing what's going on, addressing the environmental or emotional needs, the validating, and the redirecting. You can see in this video, available at Teepa Snow. Teepa Snow's kind of a guru in the world of dementia, in terms of, how to care for and approach and communicate with people with dementia. And so we're not going to watch the video today, but if you see the URL is here in the slide, and Carrie will be sending this information out to you afterwards. So you can go to, just type this URL in your browser and it'll take you to Teepa Snow's website. You'll have to scroll down a bit to get to this particular video. There's others you may be interested in though too. And in this video, this lady, Teepa Snow, is the lady with the ponytail in blue, bright blue. And she's in a care facility, and this lady that she's working with is showing a behavior that's disruptive and or bothering other residents. And Teepa Snow takes you through this whole process of assessing, addressing, validating, and redirecting. And it's good. It's very actually informative, and it's pretty simple, but I think you'd find it helpful. So I encourage you to have a look at that, as well as any other videos of Teepa Snow's. So next slide. And again, click it again if you would for me. So redirecting. So again, let's go back to that idea. We talked about lots has changed, but what hasn't changed? So next slide. And so think about what hasn't changed with the person you're caring for with dementia and how you can connect through the senses with that person through touch, sight, smell, taste, and sound. Next. So let me give you some examples here. So Mom has been frustrated with me about this whole doctor's appointment thing. And let's say I've decided to just cancel the doctor's appointment because she's really upset with me. And now she's like pushing me away from her and she's angry. So I need to redirect Mom. So first of all, I might just give her a little bit of time. And then to redirect her, I'm going to think about us, about our relationship and what remains. And so I'm going to go to Mom and say, would you like me to brush your hair? I know you enjoy getting your hair brushed. And because this is something that has been an activity of ours through the years, even when I was a little girl, and Mom really enjoyed that. It makes her kind of sleepy and happy. So, and I have the brush in my hand and I've made the motions, I'll brush your hair. So, and she gives me kind of a signal that says yes. So then get her seated and I start to brush her hair. So there's the touch. And then I get around in front of her and I let her see me eye to eye. And I say, how about a good cup of coffee? And she gives me a signal, yes. And so, and again, my mom loves coffee. And so I make coffee. There's the smell of the coffee. There's the taste of it. And I can have a cup myself and give her those nonverbals, as well as verbals. Such good coffee. This tastes so good. Smell it. Oh, it's so good. And then maybe the sound. I'm going to open up the back slider. Let's take our coffee out into the backyard. I can hear the birds singing. So we take our coffee out in the backyard and sit in the chairs and listen to the birds. So I've redirected Mom from this place of frustration and anger and maybe fear. I'm taking over her life and rushing her around, doing all this decision making that she's not aware of. And taking her through the redirect, gone through all these steps and gone through the redirect to a place of connection. So that's what we're talking about. Think about what remains in the person with dementia and how you can reach that connection with them. What do you need to do to forge that? Next slide. So some resources for ongoing support. Next. Well, another deep breath here. Self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. Katie Reed. So self-care is key here, folks, and I know this won't be the first time you will have heard it. See the next slide. So care for yourself. Build your support system. Surround yourself with the people who care about you and can help you care for yourself and who you can rely on. The people who you can call in a pinch and say, I need you right now. I'm having a bad day. I need you. Think about nutrition and hydration. And while we do that, let's stop and take a drink of water. Try to get in your exercise and physical activity to the best of your ability, and try to have good sleep and stress management to the best of your ability. Social and cognitive activity is important, and I'm going to say with a particular emphasis on social. Whatever good social connections you have and the people that are a part of your support system, it is vital that you keep those connections and keep them going for your own health and sanity. And see your healthcare provider regularly. Don't ignore the signals that your body may be giving you. If your blood pressure is creeping up, or you've not been taking your medications as consistently as you should, or you're not sleeping well at all, these are all important reasons to see your healthcare provider and reach out for supports that can get you back on track for caring for yourself. And again, reach out to Alzheimer San Diego and ElderHelp. We are organizations that are here for you folks to do all of these things that we've talked about here today, to help you care for yourself, to help you care for your person living with the diagnosis of dementia, to give you the resources and supports that you need to do that and do it well, and to help you find respite, and to continue educating yourself and leaning on us and others when you need to. So very, very important. And I think that kind of wraps us up here with communication skills. There we are at Alzheimer San Diego and all the different things that we do. Like ElderHelp, we have dementia experts that you can talk to with all sorts of information and resources. You don't need to go out there and Google everything to get the information you are seeking. There's a good chance one or the other of our organizations already has that information at hand. So reach out to us. We can make some of those steps easier. We have a respite program with volunteer companions, support groups for sure. We have Vitals, Volunteers in Touch. We partner with ElderHelp with this. Memory screenings, we support local research for sure. Lots of education and training, both in person and webinars. And by the way, previously recorded webinars on our website. And then we have social activities and outings too, all sorts of different things. You can call us at our number listed at the bottom. You can visit our website. Reach out to Carrie. She can put you in direct touch with us. And likewise, if you reach out to us and you need ElderHelp, we'll get you connected to them. So that's it for today, folks. Lots of information. Communication skills is something that takes time and practice and intention to really kind of adjust your communication. Don't be too hard on yourselves. You know, we're all human. We make mistakes. We have our days where we're saying things like, "Don't you remember? I told you." It's okay. Just take some time for yourself and then pick up and get out there and give it another shot. So, and lean on us for sure. So, do we have some questions, Carrie?
I know. So we welcome your questions. You're able to type them into the question pane and that will pop up on our screen. So I'm happy to help facilitate that. I don't see any questions this far, and but we'll wait and see. There might be a couple that do include any. And just while we wait for that, Jean, thank you so much for sharing all of those helpful tips and going back to understanding the disease and the process and the changes so that people can recognize why things might be happening.
Yeah.
Your acknowledgement of how difficult it might be, I think is really key. So I hope everybody really stops there and takes that into consideration and acknowledges the level of responsibility and the roles that are shifting and changing.
Absolutely.
And we all appreciate what you're doing. And please, as Jean mentioned, reach out to us if you need additional support.
Yep. And also know that, with our classes, both with what we, present here in partnership with ElderHelp, as well as our webinars and our in-person classes, you can come to these over and over and over again. And sometimes for a class like communication skills, it's helpful because sometimes we all need a little tune-up, a little reminder about kind of some good general techniques and guidelines. And, like I say oftentimes, is there's no time limit or maximum for utilizing our programs and services. You could call us every day of the week if you need to. Well, I have to amend that. We're answering phones at Alzheimer San Diego Monday through Friday, but you could call 5 days a week, every week for the rest of the year. And, we're always going to take your call. It's not like, oh my gosh, you can only come to 5 classes in a year. You can come to them all and over again as you need. So, and of course there's no cost to any of these programs and services, and the same for, much of ElderHelps as well too. So yeah.
Thank you. And good reminder that that yes, you can revisit these topics, and one time might not be enough. So feel free to check out Alzheimer's San Diego's website for their helpful educational tools and upcoming calendar. They host a lot of different programs, and then ElderHelp does record our webinars too, and we have that on our website. So I know a couple of questions were asked about if this webinar is recorded, and yes, it has been recorded. So we will send out the link to you if you missed part of it, or weren't able to stay the whole time. You'll get that and be able to revisit or share with anybody that might need to know about the information who didn't know about today's webinar. There was a question that came in, Jean, about asking if writing out checklists or writing things down would be helpful with communicating, since they're more visual. But there's also concern about, does that make them feel like a child then if you're writing things down?
Good question. So what we know is, writing, it's kind of a progressive thing. So using things earlier on in the disease process, so I'm going to say sort of in the early and mild stages through oftentimes the moderate or middle stages, using things like whiteboards are really good. So that you can put, like today's Thursday, October 19th, and here's the schedule for today, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need to put down everything, but maybe you put down 8 o'clock breakfast, 9 o'clock shower, 10 o'clock get dressed, and then 1 p.m. appointment with Dr. Jones, and then maybe 3 p.m. stop and get ice cream. And, so, and these are things then, if questions are being repeated, what are we doing again today? Have a look at the whiteboard and you'll see the schedule for the day. And so that can be helpful. And also, you're giving structure to the day, giving them visual look at the structure of the day, and that can be helpful. And the other thing is, yes, there's a doctor's appointment, but there's something fun happening afterwards, and it's the stop by and get ice cream at Haagen-Dazs or whatever it is. So that can work for a good amount of time in terms of helping people to know what's happening today. At some point, reading language becomes more difficult, so then you have to start to move away from that. But sometimes, just as that's happening, because it doesn't happen overnight, is you may be able to put a sign, for example, that says a toilet or bathroom. And so then that's the cue that that's the room where the bathroom is. When reading language is no longer going to work, then go to the symbols. Get the picture of the toilet that you can put on the bathroom door, and start to use those types of visual cues that are pictures of things. So does that help? Does that kind of answer that question?
Thank you. I think that was definitely helpful, and the comment was thank you. So I'm sure, but great suggestions there. I just moved the slide to our next upcoming webinar, so I encourage all of you to check that out, and I will include that in the follow-up if anybody wants to register ahead of time, but we will have a speaker from the County of San Diego's Aging and Independence Services who will be talking about how to identify and report elder abuse. So that's just important for any of us to be aware of the information, and so I encourage you to check that out. And then I'll leave it on this last slide that has ElderHelp's general contact information as well, our main phone number, that's how we access any of our programs, or we have our main email address. And then my contact information's on this page as well under volunteer and outreach. And then of course our website. So we encourage you to check out our website. Our family caregiver page does have all of the upcoming webinars as well as previously recorded webinars in our library there, and access to our online courses. So check that out if you're interested in other topics, and we will be hosting more in the coming months, but you can at least go back through and see if there's anything that sparks an interest from what has already been shared in the past. And I don't see any other questions coming in. So if you do have any questions that come up afterwards, feel free to reach out. And as Jean mentioned, Alzheimer's San Diego is available to answer questions that might come up, and they're happy to help guide you through that process. And we're also happy to connect you with resources too. So feel free to lean on us, and we're so grateful that you joined for today's webinar topic, and hope you found some helpful tips to take back to your day-to-day.
Very good. Well, thank you, Carrie and ElderHelp, and take care, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Yes, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.